The years leading up to and during menopause are a rite of passage. The wise woman inside of us is calling to slow down, to take stock, to speak our truth, to burn away all that no longer serves us, ready for our next cycle of life. The good news is, with the support, community, connection, and most of all, sharing our stories and being truly seen and heard, we will travel through this powerful, sometimes painful, heroine's journey and out the other side. Welcome to the Menopause Podcast, real and raw stories of midlife and mental health. I'm your host, Kylie Patchett, menopause self-care coach and storyteller, and I am so glad you found us. Let's get on with the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode. I am very excited. We've already been chatting for 20 minutes before we even push record. Hello to the beautiful Paula Rastrick. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
I am very excited because you and I have similar backgrounds and also similar thoughts and musings about how we should be talking more about this in the menopause world. So for the people that don't already know you, can you introduce yourself and what you do in the world? And then we'll dive in.
So yes, my name is Paula Rastrick and I have a psychology background. I'm a trained psychotherapist and my focus is on midlife women, mental health, menopause, but I'm particularly focused on highly sensitive women and trauma and the interrelationships between those. So I'm both a complex trauma survivor and I am also a highly sensitive person.
Oh, my brain wants to go in 58 different directions. Let's start from when I came across, I don't even know how I found you, but somehow the world of Instagram connected us. And you were talking about things that I was just forming for myself, the dots that I was just forming in my own experience of menopause and mental health issues, and then connecting the dots of the trauma. And you talk about connecting your own dots and how there was quite a journey to get there. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because you unfortunately were on the receiving end of being well overprescribed HRT, but I guess the blessing in that is that you have made all these connections for yourself.
Yeah. So it's both. I try to look at it now as a blessing because it's what brought me to the point that I'm at now. So at the time, it definitely wasn't a blessing. At the time, this was 2017. I was just turned 45 and I was running a business with my husband and I was running a business. My background is in complex rehab. I look at the links between the brain and the body. So psychology, brain, body. And, the business was very, very busy. We'd just come out of our careers in professional football and started this business. And you know what? It was challenging. There was a lot of lead up to that point where I had a lot of life stressors. So I was kind of running on empty already, if that makes sense.
Yes, it absolutely does.
Yeah. So setting up a new business with my husband was very, very challenging. That's one of the things I will say. So as I just turned 45, literally, I saw an advert which on Facebook in the UK, which said, "Are you drowning?" And if I'm honest with you, I looked at it and I thought, yeah, I am drowning. And that's exactly how I felt at that point in time. I didn't have the opportunity to even think about why I was drowning. I'd just been doing this all my life, but basically kind of keep going. I am a survivor and I live in survival mode. So I'm very good at it. I'm a high functioning stress head. So, highly functioning, bright, intelligent, and, helping everyone else's problems and kind of never, ever being the person that looked at themselves. So I just said, oh my God, that's me, Anyway, so it said you could be perimenopausal. Now, 7 years ago, this was not even talked about. So it's not the world that we're in now where we're talking about it. Okay, I want people to realize that. It was very much a case of, so I just thought, do you know what? This sounds like me. So I went to a private menopause doctor in the UK. And she basically said, you're perimenopausal. I ticked a box which had 21 symptoms. And those 21 symptoms I ticked, and then it was you're perimenopausal. And guess what? HRT is going to sort this out. And I'm being honest, at this point, I would have taken anything.
Yeah,
I needed
I totally
to
relate to that.
I'm running a business, I'm in survival mode, and I need to keep going. So I was then prescribed, at this point, I did not know, I trusted. I was then prescribed, first of all, 100 Everil patch, and then I was put on micronized progesterone. Fine. Over the next 3 months, my mental health deteriorated so badly, but I kept going because I've been doing that all my life. I went back after 3 months and I said, I'm really not feeling well.
Yeah.
And at this point, it was doubled. So at this point, I was then put on 200. The progesterone was then not put up. And that started the story of the decline. I mean, it was when I say decline, it was quite a rapid physical and mental unraveling is the word I would use to describe. However, because I'm a high functioning survivor, I just kind of got on with it, which sounds ridiculous and naive at the time. But you know what? I had to survive. I had a business. My marriage started to fall apart.
Yeah,
I was not in a good way. I was trying to deal with a child, a marriage that's dissolving, a business that's, as you can imagine. So the kind of long and short of that is that my mental health deteriorated so badly. I now know why, but I'll go into that later. And then my physical symptoms, I started to bleed. And when I'm talking about bleeding, I don't want to be too graphic, but we're talking,
be graphic. We talk about everything on this podcast.
Yeah, it was literally falling out of my body onto the floor. I couldn't stop it. I didn't know what was happening. I was just, and this is just adding to the whole thing. Anyway, in the end, I carried on, right? And this sounds ridiculous, but I did. And it was only my GP. I ended up going back to my GP to get a prescription of HRT, and they didn't know I was on this amount of medication because the letters hadn't been sent to the GP, right?
Oh.
So when I then went, so then I went in and I said, I'm just, I was honestly, that's my kind of rock bottom point mentally. I just didn't know what was happening. And they said, what are you doing on this amount of HRT? And I said, I don't know. What do you mean? I didn't even know that the amounts I had were high, right? I just trusted, right? They said, you're going to come off this HRT. We're going to have to bring you down. Then they said, we're going to have to check you for endometrial cancer. Well, my mum died of ovarian cancer. I was like, what is going on here? I just couldn't work any of it out. Long and short of it is they had to put me on antidepressants to bring me down off the estrogen, which I've now worked out can be an excitatory type of hormone, right? Too much of estrogen can push you over the edge. And it did. It pushed me to the point. I left my husband. I ended up in a hotel room. I don't want to, and that was the lowest point of my life. And trust me, I've had many shitty low points in my life. So to get to this point where it's like, I can't carry on. I don't want to be here and I don't want to do this anymore. So then came the kind of the slow climbing back up the hill, that part of, so I packed my business in. I had to, I couldn't do it anymore. And then that real sense of trying to get well again, repair my marriage, which was broken. And that in itself, while that's all going on as well. And, I've had a young son and all of those things. So on that journey back up, shall we say, medication, antidepressants to stabilize me, to take me down slowly off the estrogen, right? Then to get the progesterone right, blah, blah, blah. And then ended up in a place where I was stable. And I was like, right. And then I thought, being a highly sensitive person, I didn't realize at this time, what the hell happened to me?
I want to understand.
How did it get to that, right? And I've had, as I've said, multiple, many times in my life but this was rock bottom. So I was like, right. So as I said, I put myself on this journey of discovery and healing and really trying to work out. So I got my medical notes and I asked for them back and I had them examined. And then that was the first time I realized, after having them examined, wow, I was way over medicated. It was literally the wrong thing to happen. There were no discussions around my background, who I am as a person, It was based on symptoms alone.
Yeah.
And this is my mission. You cannot treat symptoms alone. They come as part of, they are signs from the body that something's not right. And therefore you have to look at the deeper meaning of those symptoms. I mean, look, if menopause was purely a biomedical process, and a hormonal change, we'd all pretty much sit somewhere on a bandwidth of the same types of symptoms. I mean, apart from the fact the symptom list keeps growing, more and more women are saying, even with HRT, I'm not feeling that I'm getting better.
This is something else I want to talk to you about.
Of course, so we have to start opening this conversation up.
I agree.
Isn't, and one of the kind of, I feel there's resistance in the UK is that if you mention the word stress, it gets buffed off as if, stress, don't talk to me about my stress. Well, we do need to talk about your stress, because your nervous system is so instrumental within all of these systems that are being affected at midlife. So that took me on this journey, big long story. And then I started to join the dots. I got the research, and I mean, forensically, I've been doing this now for a few years, right? I started looking at the research in childhood trauma. Then I started making the links over to menopause. Then I started to look at, but actually, my childhood trauma and my complex trauma, I'm going to have to face up to this, right? Because it came to the point where my emotional state, I was holding everything down and repressing. It's like keeping a lid on it. That's how I was brought up. And many of us were in the 70s, we're all Gen X women. So, keep it down, keep it down. So I kept a lid on it. Meanwhile, did all of the avoidance strategies in the world, alcohol, drugs, all of my childhood. I've done everything you can think of, risky behaviors, studied psychology, everything to avoid. They're all avoiding coping strategies, keeping busy,
And apart from, alcohol was never my thing because that's in my family, but food and busyness and helping others, like getting into other people's business, fixing.
Getting involved in, I've got two brothers. There's lots of complications there. Both my parents have died. They both died at 59. So, I've taken on the role. I was the parent anyway. So being that person, it molded me into this kind of high coping, high achieving, total and utter stress head.
But total mess under the surface.
Oh, total mess.
Mess.
I'm very good at hiding it. I'm very good at, all of the emotional trauma. I've had complex sexual abuse. I've had sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, all of these things. And it's not to say, and this is the one thing I want to get across, it's not a competition about trauma either, because we know now from trauma research that trauma isn't the big trauma things that people think. I'm trying to get this through to people. It's like, let's stop talking about this as if it's like soldiers in the war and I don't have trauma. I did all of that. It's fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I mean, that's my mantra. Are you okay, Paul? I'm fine. I'm fine. Yeah. Don't want to hug my husband. Don't want to kiss him because I feel like, I'm fine. I don't want to stop. Do you know what I mean? It's that. So getting to that midlife point where it all just honestly just fell to bits, if that's the right way to say it. Then I had this kind of awakening, I like to call it, of like, who am I? What is this about? And then discovering my high sensitivity. And this made sense to me.
Sorry. I didn't mean to talk over you. I was first of all, I relate to everything you're saying. Second, I feel like I'm like on the cusp of starting my awakening because I'm a few years behind where you are, I feel like. And I want to interrupt you just to go back to let's get some definitions clear because I think what you were just saying about trauma is important, because I too share a complex PTSD, background. But I think it is important for people to understand that I was reading, I'm not sure if you've read it, there's a book by Mary Catherine McDonald that's just out called Unbroken. And it's about, I can't think of the whole entire title, but it's basically about your trauma response. And in that, the definition that she uses of trauma is just any time that your system is overwhelmed and you have not got the resources to deal with whatever stimulus.
Exactly.
Is that how you would define it?
That's an individual thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Because it's an individual, as a highly sensitive person, I know that we process trauma on a much deeper level. So what might affect, this person over here and overwhelm them is not necessarily what would overwhelm someone else. So we need to take it like the menopause and say it's a completely individual. Yeah, and that definition that's how I would define it.
Okay,
as
beautiful.
Well.
Hey gorgeous, we interrupt this gold for a delicious invitation. If your whole body has been whispering more lately, more voice, more truth, more satisfaction, more clients of the soulmate variety, more cash, more you, then this invitation is for you. Potent, my sister mind is officially open. This is my high touch, holy fuck, I'm ready sister mind for rebels in good girl clothing who are done outsourcing their power and diluting their magic to fit into someone else's business formula. If you have been craving a space where your strategy, your voice, and your energy all get to be offered, honored, refined, and amplified, this is it. Inside of Potent, you'll get my eyes on your business every single week, copy mentoring, and that is for brand copy and content storytelling that turns your truth into client catnip, energetic recalibration that helps you unhook old learned limitation patterns, keeping you quiet, not being seen, not being heard, real-time, high-touch, one-on-one coaching that actually sees the bigness of your vision, and the kind of sisterhood that does not flinch when you show up in your full, messy, brilliant, phoenix rising from the ashes glory. This isn't surface level support. It's deep, potent, paradigm shifting work that changes who you are as a woman in business and a woman in life. We start in August. Early open access is open right now. For the month of June 2025, inside of this early access open doors period, you will receive juicy bonuses, extended payment plans, and access immediately to my entire library of storytelling gold. You'll find all the juicy details at kyliePatchett.com/potent. And we fill spaces, and there's only 10 of them, and more than likely only 5 by the time you listen to this, because by that time I will have offered them to the existing cohort, the beautiful original OG circle. We do actually take applications on a first come, first served basis. So come and apply, and let's get back to the magic of the episode. So then let's talk about what highly sensitive person means and how people listening would be able to identify. I know you've got lots of resources on your website as well, so we'll link them in the show notes. But just when we're using the terms, just to make sure that everyone is kind of on the same page about what the highly sensitive person, because that, I have to say that is something, it's not a new term for me, but I always thought it was in relation to kind of in my head, it's kind of like ADHD and autism, kind of like pre-diagnosis for me. This is the box that I thought those people lived in. And now I'm like, oh, no, that's my box or my whatever. But highly sensitive people, the two things that stand out is like high sensitivity to stimulus and things like, tags annoying you and that more sensory, as in physical sensory. So what's your definition of highly sensitive person, and how does that feel for you being?
Yeah, it's a really interesting conversation because again, I've made quite a lot of links. So I think the world of, biodiversity and neurodiversity is something else that's now starting to hopefully come out.
Yes.
I've always been a big believer, regardless, that we've all got a unique brain. So who was the person that decided that this was a neurotypical brain and this was normal? And then all these other people over here are not normal. They have, so I want to that's my strong opinion. That's an opinion on this, because how can we all possibly, who's done the research on this? So when we talk about neurodiversity, I think it's something we need to bring up in menopause as well, right? And I think it's a really important understanding of how we're all so diverse and unique. Yes. So talking about highly sensitive people, there are overlapping signs and symptoms as well, if we want to call it that, between being a highly sensitive person, autism, ADHD. Okay. Now, they are distinct, right? But they share a commonality. And one of the commonalities they share is sensory sensitivity, sensory processing sensitivity. So when we think about that side of it, right, you'll maybe see it. Some of the research I've looked at is you might have a child. Obviously, this was not around when we were young, but say you have a child who is displaying more, shall we say, sensitivity, and I'll talk about that. Then they could be labeled as having autism or Asperger's, or they could be given this kind of diagnosis. But they're now saying that it could be that it is not a disorder. It's just that they're more sensitive. It's a genetic trait, right? Yes. So, go on. Does that make sense?
No, because often
overlap.
Yeah, that's what my sense, like my feeling, and I am talking about my own personal experience. So this is not to say everyone that has been given an ADHD and or autism diagnosis is the same. My sense is that the things that are labeled as autism and ADHD in me have been a very normal survival response to developmental trauma. Because
they're all symptoms and signs and symptoms of overlapping PTSD. If you look at complex PTSD, they're saying that is, some people class that as neurodiversity, because the brain changes, right?
Yes.
So again, that's an environmental change in reaction to the environment.
Yes.
Okay, so if you took me as an example, was I born more sensitive? Well, they've now worked out that some of us have more genetic genes, right?
Yes.
So for me, say I was born with those genetic, genes, and then I was put into an environment that was highly volatile,
and it turns
highly
those genes
chaotic.
on. Yeah.
I'm in survival mode. My brain then changes structurally. So again, it's more complex, isn't it? Because it's environmental. It's also genetic. Complex PTSD now is showing up as signs and symptoms that cross over with ADHD, highly sensitive people. So, it's not as clear. To me, I just don't think it's as clear as here's the label.
Yeah, I agree.
Here we go. Because labeling people, I mean, that comes from the diagnostic type of, the DSM manual.
It's a DSM, exactly. Which is
a DSM, I'm not a big fan. That's going to be controversial.
Neither am I. And I didn't realize I read. Sorry. I didn't realize that sorry. I didn't realize that the DSM was like its roots, its origins are actually around like what will and won't insurance in America pay for. Like the diagnostic requirement. So it's not even meant to be a tool that helps people to understand themselves, which is now what it's kind of being used as. Like, let's stick a label on someone, and then therefore you can go on TikTok and watch 5 million people tell you what ADHD is. That's a whole other kettle of fish. Let's not even go down that track. But you know what I mean? Like the tool that we're using to give people labels is actually not even meant to be. It's a flawed, it's kind of like saying the BMI is the be all and end all of measuring health. It's like, well, it isn't. It was never meant to be that as a population, measurement. So when you say, so what's the difference between, and this is something I've never understood, PTSD versus complex PTSD? If we had to choose the things that make them different, is it just the number of experiences or time span of experiences, or or is there no easy way of answering
It's a
that?
difficult one. If you relate it, if you relate it to the ACEs research, if you look at it from an adverse, one of the things is a cumulative effect, isn't it?
Yes.
So it's an accumulative effect of. So I score very highly in the ACEs score. Now, they're the 10 researched ACEs scores. I mean, going back to the kind of diagnostic type of differential diagnoses and all of this stuff, you know what? I mean, having a label, or shall we call it a label? It certainly helped me to understand. So I think it's got a place in terms of it's helping me understand stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that in itself can be a really great help to people.
Yes.
However, obviously, with the amount of overlapping, the way that they diagnose is through clusters of symptoms, isn't it? And then because all of these symptoms, I don't even like the word, but we'll call them symptoms. I was trying to find another word for menopause symptoms. And menopause symptoms are no different, right? Because they all intertwine and interlink and they all overlap and then they all become all very tangled up. Then we've ended up with kind of like, this is menopause. Well, actually, was it menopause, or actually was this from your complex trauma?
Yeah,
Exactly. And now we've met at the junction of menopause where we know hormonally estrogen helps to regulate. And then all of a sudden, all of that uncovered stuff that you've already had, it's not coming from menopause, is now starting to push back up. Yeah. And I think because everything's overlapping and becoming tangled up, I think it's really difficult to say to someone, you know what? I mean, I do get frustrated when I see someone say menopause mood disorder, right? That is not a thing, okay? No. It's a cluster of symptoms, right? And then someone's put a label across the top and said this is menopause mood disorder. Yeah. That is not a disorder. It's not a thing. It's not. So again, it's a cluster of symptoms. Well, those clusters of symptoms and signs, can be related to trauma, can be related to ADHD, can be related to autism, So let's talk about the brain, because really all of this is about the brain, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
If we were to take a common denominator in all of this, I like to talk about menopause as a neurological transition. Yes. Because then it starts to broaden the conversation about what's happening with your diverse brain and body. Yeah. And if we look at it from that perspective, it might help people to start to understand, well, what's my brain and my nervous system rather than my symptoms? Yes. Does that make sense?
You're speaking my language. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, because I think if we look at the science of that, right, then we can take science from pain science. We can take science from trauma. We can take science and we can bring all this together and we can help a woman understand that it's coming from multiple different directions. We're made of multiple dynamic systems. So for me, we need to broaden the language, and that would help women to start to see past the symptoms and start looking under the car bonnet and the deeper sort of, why do I have these symptoms? Yes.
And as we were saying before, it's not convenient necessarily for someone who benefits from prescribing, for instance, HRT, if it's to be very careful here, a specific practice that specializes in menopause. If you come along and you are looked at as just a symptoms checklist, it would be very easy for someone who is in the business of just seeing a lot of patients and getting them through quickly and ta-da, here's your HRT script and off you go, which is not every single practice. I'm not at all saying that. But what I'm saying is, without looking at the underlying experience and history of the person, you cannot just whack HRT on the top of it and, send people, your experience is a perfect example. And I think also, to me, the reason why I'm so passionate about having these conversations, particularly about mental health, is if we are having conversations where we were saying, here's what we know about what trauma and particularly developmental trauma does, and it impacts every single system of the body, like we were just talking about. So I was saying to you before we started recording, I've got
Yeah.
ADHD, autism, and now I've got Ehlers-Danlos. Not now, I've always had Ehlers-Danlos. And I was saying to the physio about that, about my sense is that these are all connected to childhood trauma. And she's like, yeah, we already know that. And I'm like, well, how is it that the average person does not know? And maybe I'm not speaking correctly, but I know, like, I like to think I'm a reasonably well-informed person, but it was not on my windscreen at all to be forewarned that a history of trauma is something that I need to be keeping in mind when I'm going through any transition or stressor, including menopause being, you know, a change in the neurological balance and physical balance. And so what is stopping us putting those pieces together? Like you're saying, you used to work in, sports medicine, pain science. You've got, psychology and psychotherapy in your, like, why are we not having these conversations? Or are we just at the stage where we're still pulling people apart into all the separate disciplines, like, which doesn't work?
Well, I think we, if you look at the research in pain science, there's definitely a shift, and has been over the last few years, towards the biopsychosocial model of health.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Now, if that's happening over in the world of pain science, it's no different to what's happening over in the world of menopause. We're all human, right?
Yes. Yeah.
However, we seem to have a frustration, and I agree with this, that women's health is not researched well enough, which it isn't, right? And that is wrong. However, we also now have this other issue that we're not taking other research, bringing it over, and then joining the dots and saying, actually, let's look at this childhood research here and look at a woman in menopause. Now, we have got some research, right? So there is some research around, menopause and childhood adversity and childhood experiences. We've got that, right? But it's not very big, and it's not very well researched, like all of it. However, there's nothing to stop us joining dots, which is what I've done, and starting to say, well, it doesn't make sense, does it? Because if we were to take 10 women, right, and put them in a room and they all talked about their experiences, let's just do that around a dinner table, and they talked about how they were experiencing menopause, you're going to get a completely different story from each woman. Now, I don't think the collective is happening. It's like one person speaks about it on social media and says something like, I'm having a terrible time and I'm having awful symptoms. And then somebody else will join in with, I'm having awful symptoms. And then, but we're not really collectively saying, well, look, this person over here is not having an awful time. And it's kind of swung in the UK over to the point that if anyone says, I managed my menopause through exercise or diet, or, I'm having a healthy menopause, they get jumped on. Yeah. They've actually been attacked and said, and these words, you're gaslighting women. That is not gaslighting. No. And that's another thing that I'm getting frustrated with, is that women turning around and using the term, you're gaslighting me, because we have a different opinion or a different perspective. Talk to somebody that's been in an abusive relationship and has truly gone through the process of being emotionally abused through gaslighting. That is not gaslighting. So we need to get that right, because that's an issue, right? Yeah. So we should be able to talk about our own unique experiences, whether they are positive or... I don't look at menopause and go, even though I hit rock bottom, I don't look at it and go, you know what, like my childhood trauma, I've learned from it, right? It's growth. It's an opportunity for growing. Absolutely. And I've always looked at it that way. Now, I could blame my parents, and don't get me wrong, I've had issues but anger of blaming my parents, both of them are dead. And where is that anger taking me? What is it doing with my relationships with my child and my husband and ultimately, as much as people potentially do not want to hear this, the only change comes from within, and the only person that can make that happen is you. Yeah. And it's the same with menopause. We can look at it in different ways, and that does not mean that somebody is not struggling. I really, really, really struggled, right? Yeah. But I worked out why. And once I realized the whys, you can then start implementing the things that are unique to you. Yes. Not something a doctor says, because let's face it, I mean, or a medical or anyone, a therapist. You have to make it unique to your world.
Yeah.
It has to come from your brain. It has to come from your body. And going back to like the sensitivity of just bringing that back round, if you're highly sensitive people is not a diagnostic disorder. It's a personality trait. And that personality trait comes with some issues because, we feel emotions much, I'm very passionate, you can probably tell. I feel other people's emotions. I process emotions in a very deep way. I struggle with anxiety. My nervous system is dysregulated. But once I started to understand that more, and I started to put the tools in place for me, I'm living a completely different life. I mean, a couple of my friends said to me that you're a different person. I'm a different person because I'm working at it.
Yeah.
You can't have anything without the work. I'm so sorry. And that's what the issue is, where I'm seeing women that are taking HRT and saying it's not helping me. Perhaps that's because, not for all, there's other work that needs to be addressed.
And I think that we are in such a strange time where, I don't know, this is not a new thing, but I feel like it's intensified lately. It's like I don't have time to make any changes to my life or pay attention to myself in any meaningful way. I just want to go to a doctor and I just want that pill to fix it. Now, please hear me, everyone. I am not saying that there is not a place for medication, and particularly, and I share your experience.
Definitely think, there's definitely, I mean, I'm good for full transparency. I'm on HRT and I'm on 50.
Yeah, me too.
So think about it. I went from 200 down to 50.
Yeah.
Which again, so again, it's not about anti-medication. It's not about anti-anything.
Not at all.
It's about the individual understanding who they are and what they need, rather than we're all being put into one. Symptoms, guys. That's menopause. Yeah. I don't believe that's true. Yeah. Sorry.
I think for me, the other thing that I would say about medication, and this is particularly, so I ended up with pretty bad depression and then the side salad of anxiety on top of it, which was a completely new thing for me. And that actually really impacted my ability to sleep. So I would get tired and I'd go to bed, and as soon as I laid down, the palpitations and the anxiety would start, and I was crazy making, like literally. And I was actually very concerned about my mental health. And I'm very, very lucky and acknowledge the privilege of the fact that I already work with a psychologist and a psychiatrist and multiple other, support people, including a beautiful group of friends. And I understand that may not be everybody's reality. I will also say that the medication that I'm now on to help with the anxiety and the depression has allowed me to be able to start building bridges towards other solutions for myself that I 100% could not conceive of.
I've done. Yeah, exactly. That's what I say to people. It's a bridge. It can be I took antidepressants after postnatal depression.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, those links, if you arrive at perimenopause and you've already had postnatal depression, you have these are the links we need to be, not just I arrived at menopause, then all of these things happened. Yeah. That's not true.
No.
You don't just arrive. Now, okay, some women may say, listen, I've never had any issues with my mental health until I arrived at perimenopause. And if that's you, totally, when I'm not, this is not about you, but I do not know many women that if you look at the signs and the junctions in their life, postnatal depression is a big, so I took antidepressants then, and then I took antidepressants again when I was over medicated with HRT to stabilize me. Again, I don't take them now. No. I use them as a bridge. There's nothing wrong with that. That's absolutely.
I tell you what,
no one's saying that.
Yeah, exactly. And to me, I was still in the camp of, I think this comes from, having a parent with significant depression, and like there was a lot of, what will I say, a lot of links to depression that I just didn't even want to go down the track of being associated with me. So still, patterns of sort of arguing against the past. And when I actually got to the stage where I couldn't do anything but, like, I literally was concerned about the way that I was feeling, and as was my family, the things that I put in place now are things that are obvious to put in place, but I had no motivation and no ability to do it for myself. And I knew what I needed to do, and I could plan it, and I used to put it up on a, planner, and I just couldn't. I just could not. I was too far down in the hole. And I think that's when we start saying natural's right or medication's right, and there's no in between and no individualized, it's not right.
I don't believe in that conversation. I think, this is the issue, isn't it? It's like, it's not about what's right and wrong. There's no right and wrong. There is no right or wrong, because for each individual, what's right for one, and right, and I see it on social media where women are arguing. And again, what we've got to try and take a step back and realize is that your opinion is based on your perception, and that's based on your reality. And that's why we've got different opinions, and it's healthy, because we all have different perceptions and different experiences. I think that sometimes gets lost within this conversation, because it's become almost like black and white. And then if you don't take HRT, then you this is happening. And if you do, and it's become so divided and polarized. That is not how life works. It just isn't, is it?
Not
and I think that needs to be, we need to kind of stop that, because that going down that road is dividing women. I take HRT. Some women, I'm transparent about that. I don't take as much as what I was put on, which is why my campaign is around.
Thank goodness.
But, and I don't take antidepressants now, but I'm open and totally open book about my mental health struggles and my life and my coping strategies. Because that's my life, and I'm the only person living that life.
Yeah.
So I can only ever talk about my own experiences, but that doesn't mean I imprint them on you.
No, exactly. And I think what you said before about we need to be looking at menopause as an individual experience with individual, things that are influencing it. And like you said before, with the trauma, the coping strategies that then all of a sudden stop working, I feel like for me, that trying to keep everything under the surface, it takes a lot of energy and emotional bandwidth. And then when you get to perimenopause, it is exhausting.
Just
Thank God.
open.
Exactly. And it's like, trying to keep a beach ball underwater. It's like it takes a fair bit of energy.
I've done that all my life.
Yeah, me too.
I'm an expert.
So I'm interested in, you recently did a post on why do I sometimes feel anxious when everything is calm and okay? And I wanted to ask this in the podcast, because I think it's important for people that are listening that are relating to some of the things that we're sharing in terms of like past history or coping strategies, and all of a sudden they're not feeling like they're working. It can feel for us who grew up in kind of different versions of chaos or lack of safety, that everything being okay is actually really hard to manage. And I know I'm putting my hand up, and I'm
exactly that. And that's why I talk about this stuff, because everything I talk about is the things that I have experienced. And the one thing I did about my social media was and I'm going to broaden that. I'm going to talk about coping strategies. I'm going to talk about, being a people pleaser. I'm going to talk about,
good girl
boundaries,
conditioning,
about being the parent and the good girl, and there's a lot of psychology about the good girl, and that applies across all women that were born in the 70s, where a lot of us have been conditioned to just shut up and put up.
Don't be demanding, don't speak your truth, do everything for everybody else.
Shut up. I mean, my mum was brought up in the you should be seen and not heard, Victorian, so when we even talk about the psychology of that, midlife should be a time. Well, that's why I'm going to use my voice, because to step into that authenticity, to be able to say what you want. And you know what? Some people will not like it, and that's okay. You're not everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah, exactly.
And that understanding of that. But going back to, anxiety is a fear response, isn't it? It's an innate fear, physiological fear response. It's a survival strategy.
Mechanism.
So when we talk about anxiety, I like to, as a person that grew up and has grown up in survival mode, right? Any periods of happiness or rest, well, I never really rested because that was a fear response. If I rest, right, and I go there, I mean, I'm a yoga teacher and I've done everything, you know.
Me too.
Yoga was part of my, well, of course, because it's part of us trying to understand who we are.
I need to fix myself. I must learn all the strategies.
Yeah, I mean, I've learned everything, you know, I'm like that. I mean, you know, I'm the most personal, proactive person in the world. Anyway, so yoga, I went on a quite a deep journey with yoga after my postnatal depression, and stillness. So let's talk about that. When you've come from that kind of try to keep running, when you try to sit with your emotions and feelings, because it comes up in the body, right?
Yeah.
Those feelings feel very, very uncomfortable.
Overwhelming.
Right? Yep. To the point that you just do not want to sit with it. You don't want to go there. You're avoiding, right?
Yep.
So I've ticked all the boxes of doing yoga and doing all of that, trained, I've done 500, you know, all of this stuff. Did I ever really, truly, truly go there? No, I only went to the level, if I'm being honest, of helping others. But did I go there myself? Yes, I went a little bit down the tunnel. I went a little bit down, but then you get to the point where sitting in that and actually going through those feelings of those emotions is so overwhelming. What do? You get back up and you start being busy and you start going over to the other person and trying to help them. So again, you're avoiding, aren't you? So anxiety, you know, is a fear response. It's a physiological fear response. And if you grew up in a chaos, we'll say chaos, and you're used to being in survival mode, any period of time where there might be a little bit of joy or there might be a little bit of stillness is so alien to you that you push it back. You don't want to go there. And so what happens is your anxiety kicks in, doesn't it? Because it's almost a state that you're used to being in.
Yeah. It's normal.
You're living in that. It's normal to you. So of course, not having that state of not being in that fear response and allowing yourself. And then the other side of that is, well, it's all going to go anyway. It's not going to last.
This is it.
So there's no point in me being happy because someone will take it away from me. So again, what do? You go back into the fear response because it's more comfortable for you to be in that fear response. And that one of the really difficult things is that thing of letting go of in emotional relationships. So my husband and I, you know, he's a very safe, trusting man. And that's probably, when I look back now, think that's why we got together, because I grew up with a load of alpha males and, you know, fighting and all of this stuff. And my husband was the complete polar opposite. So I've worked out that's why we got together, because he represents in a very deep subconscious way safety. Right? And it's all around safety and survival. And so he gave me a platform of safety. But you can speak, you know, if you said to him, is she open with her affection? Is she very... No, I've struggled with it because, again, it's that fear of letting go, of this being taken away from me. So I'd rather live in high functioning anxiety. It's more familiar. Does that make sense? It's all around.
Absolutely.
And I think once you understand that, even understanding anxiety, right? How many people actually understand anxiety? Because when it's broken down, this is what I base all my work around, is awareness first, becoming aware, then understanding. Because then when you understand something, you start to look at it as in a different way. You take a step back from it, don't you? Rather than being in survival mode. You understand what survival mode is. You understand, I mean, we can look at many theories, but one of the theories around the freeze response, isn't it? The nervous system is depression. Immobilization.
Sorry.
You know, and this is what my work is going to be about, is trying to get, if you understand the window of tolerance, you understand when your nervous system's being pushed. You understand when you're living in fight flight. You understand that when you're in, because you can go from depression to anxiety, they come hand in hand. When you get to that, shall we say, the middle state, I mean, it's not as simple as that, but that becomes almost like, oh, it's not going to last. It's not going to last. And you push yourself back into fight flight.
Because you may as well, because you're going to get there anyway.
Well, you're going to get let down anyway, aren't you? Because that's what you've lived. You've conditioned. I mean, I have huge trust issues based on my relationship with my father. But do I understand that now? Yes, because I've done the work. When I'm able to separate myself from my conditioned thinking pattern and recognize this is not moving me in line with my authenticity and my values, I'm able to take a step back and go, oh, catch that one, because that ain't happening.
Yeah.
And again, we're so in it that sometimes, and then people will say, I'm so busy, but we know that stress biologically ages the brain. And we have this conversation around dementia and Alzheimer's. No one wants to really, this is a contentious subject, right? Where it's like, well, HRT, estrogen, all of this stuff. Let's just remove all of that stuff. Let's remove all of that stuff and say one simple thing. Cognitive debt, anxiety, stress is cognitive debt to the brain, right? Go look, because that is one of the biggest indicators of cognitive decline, right? To keep it simple. And that is, I'm not a fear-mongering messenger, right? But I do believe that we need to start to understand the implications of toxic stress, allostatic load, cognitive debt, cognitive decline. You know, so while we're over here talking about menopause, they're the things we should be going, that's what I'm going to address, my nervous system and my brain, because it's all interrelated, you know. And yet we seem to, all we do in menopause, sorry, I'm going to make this abroad, is look at estrogen, progesterone and testosterone. I mean, that's it.
Yep. I know.
I don't know if that's, you know, I'm finding that, yes, there are links, and I'll give them in the research of estrogen. And estrogen helps to regulate sensory processing. No one's talking about that. Well, of course, if you're highly sensitive, sensory processing sensitivity, that's going to be linked, isn't it, as we go through the roller coaster of perimenopause, right? Because estrogen is involved in many brain areas.
It's a great buffer in lots of things.
I refute is that without estrogen, you're kind of doomed, because that is not the case. You'd be better off looking at your allostatic load, your stress responses, your nervous system, your mental health, because they are the bigger key indicators of cognitive decline. You know, if otherwise you would have you wouldn't go through menopause, like you wouldn't go through the transition of biological change.
Yes, I'm glad that you've brought this up, because like I'm a biologist originally a biochemist and geneticist, and
way above me then on that.
No. In terms, why I say that
you must know your stuff.
But from a biologist, I know my degree is so old, you may as well just put it in the toilet for toilet paper or something. But anyway, why I say that is I keep on coming back to the reason why I decided to study biology in the first place was this intrinsic wanting to understand how humans worked. And I think, I don't know, I need to go and do your HSP questionnaire thingy, because I'm as you're talking.
There's 3 of them now.
Yes.
Yeah, the research tests, and then I'm gathering the research on this.
Yes.
So have a look at that, because there's 3 different ones that I've taken from the sensitivity research. They've got an institute in London. They're looking at the research. I mean, you know, none of what we're saying is not research. We're not talking woo. Not that.
We're not. No, exactly.
We're talking evidence-based research here. Yeah. So for anyone that wants to come in and go, well, that's not. It's evidence-based. Yeah. Let's talk of that in that language. Yeah.
And I think as you're talking, I'm like, maybe I am sensitive, because if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is you feel deeply. You've got an antenna that picks up on other people's, emotional state, which is 100% me. But also, do you think it is part of the HSP profile to have that desire to put things together and figure it out? Or is that just 100%. A research brain?
We are 100%.
Yeah.
So if you look around the research in highly sensitive people and the trait of being, so one of the things, I mean, to break it down into simplistic terms, let's say we're all born, right? And primitively we were born to survive, right? Yeah. That's our strongest instinct, isn't it? Survival. Yep. And it still is our strongest instinct, right? As human beings, okay? Yep. But when you're born, it would make sense to me that we're all born with different genes and different genetic makeups and different, and within that primitive survival tribe, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us would have been designed to be more sensitive. So
Yep.
we're more sensitive to the environmental stimulus coming from the environment. This is one part of it. I can only talk about this one part. So I would be at the front and I would be going, I can hear
that
danger.
there's something changed.
I can sense.
Yeah.
I can sense trouble.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know, my friends are like, what the? And I'm like, nah, it doesn't feel right to me. This isn't right. I'm like, how do you know? My husband's like, what? And I go to him, no, I'm telling you. Right. I'm telling you. And he goes, how do you get that right? I'm like, because I feel it. I sense it. So it would make sense, right, that some of us were born to be that type of leader that at the front, and the rest are getting eaten by the tigers at the back.
Yeah.
My husband would have been eaten by the tiger at the back. He has no. I'm trying to be kind of like.
I know. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Sensory processing sensitivity.
Then
my background.
Yes, sorry.
It's heightened that. So I'm like Spider Woman, right? I'm like, I can sense. My gut tells me.
Yeah.
I get a feeling.
I always say, I've got a feeling in my waters. And I've always, I actually say it in that stupid accent that I just said too.
Empathy, putting yourself in other people's shoes, feeling emotional pain of others. You know, you're highly sensitive to that. And then someone else, one of your mates, they're not.
Yeah.
They're not. It's not.
I was telling the story of introducing a podcast guest, and I ended up crying in the introduction. I thought, far out. We're not even into the interview where we're talking about some heavy stuff. I'm really interested. I know we're getting to the edge of our time together, but where would you advise people if they're feeling like their nervous system and their reaction to stimulus? So either they're experiencing anxiety or like fight, flight, sort of hypervigilance type of stuff, or they're sensitive to noise and sound and irritation and whatever. Where would you say to start in terms of taking some soothing or care of your nervous system to try and have some more, I don't know whether I'm meaning, make the window of tolerance bigger. I guess that's the end game, but, a little starting point.
Yeah, I think one of the key messages that I'd like to put across is that we talk about stress reduction, and we do a lot around stress reducing. So, let's do meditation, let's do this, and a lot of that doesn't suit people. I'd like to move that dial a little bit, not to stress reduction, to stress resilience.
Resilience, yes. Yes.
Because we want to look at it as, how do I build stress resilience to cope with my life, rather than, because one of the arguments is always, well, I haven't got time to sit and meditate, and meditation doesn't suit me. I've done, I'm too, up in my head. And we spend most of our times up in our head and not in our bodies, don't we? We are like cut off from the body, like, this disconnect, I call it, right? And that happens at menopause when you realize I'm completely disconnected, right?
Yeah. I think I spent 3 decades at least out of my body.
Exactly. So that disconnect is really important, because it's working out, how do you increase stress resilience and responses and reactivity? So as a more sensitive woman, your brain is more responsive, your nervous system's more responsive. So you have to work with your body, right? It's in the nervous system.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm setting up my resources and my tools. Particularly, I specialize in sensitive women and menopause, and I'm creating my own psychoeducation resources and a membership, which is around learning those tools. Because really what you want to do is learn the tools, don't you? So you can implement them, bite-sized techniques, right, that fit with your life.
Absolutely.
So that's something I'm launching. I'm launching that in September, and I'm just about to start talking about that now.
Cool.
However, if you didn't want to do that, that's, I'm not a salesperson. If you don't want to do that, the first thing that you would want to look at is, are you a highly sensitive person? I didn't even realize. Go and do the test.
Yeah.
Because that will give you so much information that you probably, and so many insights. Then you look at Elaine Aron's work, who is the pioneer of the highly sensitive person. And then you can start to look at the stuff on YouTube you can look at that it's a minefield, and that's why I'm bringing it all together and making it into a bit of that's the issue you've got. You can go down a lot of rabbit holes, which is what I've done for years, which is why I'm creating my own specially dedicated. But, learning stress resilience and how the nervous system works is key. So things around polyvagal theory might be an example for you to look at.
Yeah.
Because that helps you to understand visually.
Yes.
And the why.
Yeah.
Because once you understand that in itself is a game changer.
It's so
isn't it?
good.
It's almost like, wow, I now understand.
Yeah, when you were saying that before, what I wanted to actually say, for me, understanding the why behind something allows me, exactly like you said, to be then not in it, but actually observing my response. So rather than being completely overwhelmed by that feeling of anxiety and having the blah, 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 like that whole story, of actually being able to go, oh, wow, I'm actually having a physical response that is and so understanding why it's happening, it actually gives me, I don't know, it's like awareness, which therefore gives you choice. And, that's not to say that magically it's all going to go away as soon as you understand why, but I think that's a good thing for people. I know not everyone.
The first stage is awareness, isn't it? The first stage of any behavior change of understanding is awareness.
Yeah.
Simply awareness. That then takes you on the next path, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Once you have awareness, you can say, this makes sense to me.
Yes.
This now, those light bulb moments, those insights, then you go, what am I doing next?
Yes.
Because to start to look at it from a big, broad picture becomes so overwhelming, which is, I've been doing this for years. It's not just 5 minutes. And that's why I'm collating and collecting the resources to pull out
in one
as a central resource to people, because I've done the work, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I'm only specializing in sensitive women and menopause. Otherwise, it's too broad. But I hope that helps without it sounding like, I'm not very good at sort of saying, oh, I'm setting up these services. I'm doing it because that's who I am as a person.
Yeah.
And I believe that this is my mission. And I believe as a sensitive person that this is my thing in the world.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to share with others. Find your thing in the world, because when you've got that mission and that passion, that in itself changes your mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a purpose. It's the magical purpose that people have been looking for.
And we lose that sometimes, don't we, in menopause? In that midlife transition, we lose that. A lot of women, children are leaving or not leaving. You might not have children, but you start to question, who am I? And what am I doing? And what can I channel? And all these beautiful questions that,
what am I
if you've got the right support.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm setting up my community specifically for that. Because women who are sensitive understand, why they're so they're emotional, and why it's a superpower, not a negative thing. And I just want to turn it into this kind of like, wow, we're really creative. We're deep thinkers.
Mm-hmm.
You could call it overanalyzing, but let's call it deep thinking. And we make such beautiful friends because we care, and I don't like small talk, so therefore don't talk to me about small stuff. Talk to me about the deep stuff. That, but if you can't find that tribe and you can't outlet that, you kind of mask it, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. 100%. The other thing I would say is you always have really cool, short and actionable things on your Instagram channel. So we'll link to that in the show notes. Yeah. And
I'm doing little tools and resources. I'm going to start doing some EFT stuff, and I'm doing some body somatic stuff. And, again, I'm happy to do that. That's all. People can save that. They can look at it. And, that's part of what I'm trying to do is these are the tools and techniques and resources that I use. That's what I'm going to share. They might not be for you, but this is what I use. So if you head over to there, you can find stuff on there.
It's so good. I'm so grateful to have these conversations because, as I said before, the more that we talk about this and our own experiences and are honest with how much mental health can be changing around the menopause transition, particularly for people that have any sort of trauma, and particularly complex trauma. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your spectacular wallpaper with me. I've just been obsessing over that the whole time we've been talking.
Everyone says that.
It is gorgeous.
The wallpaper thing. Yeah, I'm very into. That's another thing. I'm just really into color. I'm quite eclectic. I like, otherwise it's my brand, even my brand I've made, and I think you have as well. My brand is colorful. It's bold.
I love color.
It's not insipid. I don't mean that in a, I just don't want it to be this kind of, it's come on, let's be authentic and get out there and show your true colors.
Beam it out there.
So, who are you? Let's celebrate this and step into your your authenticity. And God, it's powerful when you do that, because for my whole life I haven't really ever truly done that.
I think, as you said before, I know I kind of sounded like I was poo-pooing the labels of ADHD and autism. I think you bring a really important comment. It is very helpful to have a way of understanding your own normal behavior, which then by definition invites
normal behavior.
Yes.
Not a disorder or a dysfunction or a it's again how you look at it, and how words are very powerful. And I sometimes have these things with people, but they're very powerful. I mean, in my acceptance commitment therapy, which is what I use for my, we talk about language and humans and the language and how you define words, right? Because one word could trigger me, right? I could say one word and it would trigger me. You might not have that. So how powerful is language when you think about how much you're triggered by one word? So when we look at, disorder, dis-ease, dysfunction, immediately, how does it change your physical feeling?
Feels heavy, feels ick.
Just stop with that for a second. But when you then change that and you start to look at it in a different way. So yes, labels help to, I don't even want to say categorize, but they help to give insights. They help to understand. To understand something, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not live by it, that it's your negative disorder. I truly believe that every single human being has they have a unique brain. So let's stop talking about it in a way that your brain is different to mine, normal, and therefore my brain is normal and yours isn't, because that simply is not true, is it?
I call my brain,
let's start to embrace that.
I call my brain sparkly now. I have a sparkly brain because it's I like the fact that the invitation is there to stop trying to be whatever neurotypical is, as you said before. And where I was going with that is love the bright colors and love, like I'm the same, like I've got plants everywhere, I've got colorful things everywhere, because that is what my brain loves. That's what I love. And yet I have gone through periods of my life where I've felt like I need to have that more like natural, curated, beautiful, Instagram worthy house. And I'm like, oh, screw that. I would hate to live somewhere like that. I wouldn't feel like I could cozy on down on the couch with my dog or whatever. So I think that's the invitation of midlife, no matter how it gets served up, is be more yourself and be
your true individual self.
And
if we all did that, and yes, there'll be people that you don't resonate with. Well, that's cool. That's fine. Just walk on by. You don't have to, instead of kind of saying, well, we should all be thinking in the same way. We should all be acting in this way. We should all be taking this, and we're not taking this. And if you don't take that, then you're in this camp. Really and truly, what a load of rubbish. We should just be saying we're all individual women. And we all know that, if this suits me, then this is the way that I'm going to embrace that. I love the fact that I'm quirky. I love the fact that I'm individual. I love the fact that I'm deeply emotional, and I love the fact I'm a deep thinker, and my friends love it. They love it, and they know that I'm going to be, talking in a certain way, and they're like, oh, but I don't expect them to be the same.
No, exactly. And that is the beauty of just being ourselves without without all the other stuff. Thank you so, so much. I will make sure I link to all of those things in the show notes. I cannot wait to see what you come out with in September. I'm excited for that. Excited. Very, very cool. And thank you for the work you do in the world, because I think you sharing the story of how you've joined the dots is certainly, when I found you on Instagram, I was only really just starting to kind of go, but hang on a minute, if that and that and that and that, and all of that has links to developmental trauma, then what about, maybe that's the reason why my mental health is so bad all of a sudden in perimenopause. So finding you was like a little like, yes, okay, yes. one of those little universal
Not on our
tips.
own, are we? That's the thing. We're not on our own, and it's community is everything. And again, survival mode, community. We've broken down communities. We're not like just talking to someone. Just this conversation, does that not help mental health? Yes, it
100%.
does. It's huge.
Yes, 100%.
To even talk and get involved with people that get it, and I understand that, and so anyway, we could talk all day. And
I know,
me.
and you need to go. Have a beautiful day. Thank you so much for sharing. And I cannot wait to, keep in touch and see what you do next.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening into today's episode. If you love the show, as I hope you do, please take the time to subscribe on your favourite pod listening platform and rate and review. And for bonus points, if you have a friend or someone who popped to mind as you were listening to this episode, why not hit the share link wherever you're listening and send them a little love bomb. Like, listen to this. Did you know this is normal? I really, really, really would love to get these beautiful stories into the hearts and ears and minds of so many more midlife mavens. And your help spreading the love is truly, truly appreciated. Thank you so much. I'm Kylie Patchett, your host, and have a spectacular day.